All right, my friend. This is the Sales Hustle Club call. This is where you get some energy to help your sales day. All we are is energy. All we are is energy. And who do we have today but Dave Florence, one from Evolution of Dave. Dave, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very good. I'm also, even more amused now because of our little technical hiccup.
Oh my gosh. I was, it's just so funny because just the other day this got rescheduled because I got booted from a flight. We had bad weather in Nashville and my flight got canceled. And I'm just like, I guess this is what I'm doing. I'm staying in a hotel in Fort Lauderdale. And then here we break the stream. And I guess I'm just here breaking the stream on here in front of everyone, messing it up. But you know what? It's okay because we mess up. Is that right, Dave?
Oh, totally. Yeah. There is a real message there. I mean, we can, it's good to laugh at ourselves, number one, but also I think, that awareness of we are only human.
Yeah.
Things don't always go the way we plan them. And the more we accept that, the more we just accept the flow of life, the easier life becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that's part of why I do this. This is the practice of the Sales Hustle Club for me is for me to learn better ways for me to manage my own energy. And I have to recognize as a leader, we are influencing others through our energy. And when our energy is bad, it really trips up upon the things that I want to achieve. And I'm also in sales. I'm also making sales calls. I'm also in that world where I have to bring my energy to a meeting. I have to bring my energy to the team. And today we are talking about how to manage your vices. Dave, what do you mean by how to manage your vices? What does that mean?
Well, let's talk about what is a vice, first of all, because we've all got them. And when you look at the dictionary definition, it really casts a dark picture of what a vice is. It talks a lot about immorality, wrongdoing, wickedness, badness. But really, the truth be told, some of our vices, I don't think can be labeled that. They're just simply things that we have allowed to creep into our lives in quite often, either from the purpose of, I want to do this because it's going to make me feel better, or because of technology, or in today's world, we quite often create a vice because it's supposedly going to make our lives easier. And then maybe there's a dopamine connection that we get with it as well. So a vice really is something that we have in our life that deep down we know isn't serving us. And it probably never was. Maybe there was a reason why we started to build it into our lives. And maybe we thought at the time, I'll just do this, for a brief period of time, then I'll be fine and I'll get rid of it. In the same way that somebody who drinks a lot of alcohol, has that negative psychological attachment to it. And also they start to fool themselves. I'll just have one more. And I'll just have one more tomorrow, all that kind of stuff. So like I said, a vice really then is something that we all have. And, I don't mind admitting what mine are. Certainly from a technical perspective, having to bring social media into my life, where before I didn't really have it at all, but I needed it to promote the work that I do, I did find myself doom scrolling. And I saw that, I was able to recognize it, but I knew that this was a vice that wasn't serving me. Previously, I've drunk too much coffee. Previously, I've drunk too much vodka. So all of those have been vices in my life. What about you?
Oh, geez, I could. How much time do we have? I think the one that resonates to me the most is obviously the doomsday scrolling. And that is something that is kind of that word is brand new into the atmosphere of talk, because it was usually just social media scrolling, but it is doomsday scrolling because I had fallen into the traps of seeing, fight videos. And for whatever reason, when you see two people going at it, you're drawn to it. You want to see what happens. And it does make you fearful in your normal everyday world. And that's not something that anybody should be watching. It's but because it does influence biases and other things in our just everyday world by being fed with the next video. And the system works really well because you watched X, it's going to show you Y, and it's going to keep feeding you this. And it's really toxic from many angles, other than the fact that it's a complete and utter waste of time.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I slightly disagree there when it comes to fight videos, in that I think it's the context with which you're watching it. If like me, you watch it because you enjoy the chess element of fighting and professional fighting, boxing, mixed martial arts, I'm fascinated by it. Because I enjoy watching two people try to, think ahead about how they're going to win this challenge.
The ones I'm watching are not professional. These are
Okay.
street fights. These are really bad attacks.
Yes. Then in which case you're right. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. Then the context behind that is different. That's the same as, you drive past on a motorway and you see a car crash and you can't help but look. It's that kind of psychology, isn't it, that we get drawn to, all of us humans. None of us are clean when it comes to this kind of stuff. None of us are angels when it comes to this kind of stuff. We can all be lured in by these kind of images, can't we? Yeah.
And that also, the other vices obviously would be like news and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. And don't get me started on that, because that really is a one in which I am fairly opinionated. And the other thing
how do we manage this? How do we how do we know not what not to do? I mean, how does that show up?
Well, that's a really good question. I think, first of all, it's worth pointing out that whatever the vice, they're all the same. They all have a negative psychological attachment. They all have typically a similar physiological response, and I'm talking about either surges in dopamine, the neurochemical dopamine that I'm sure we've all heard of. And by the way, dopamine, you can have that work for you. When it comes to social media, when it comes to gaming, when it comes to often sort of things that are attributed to technology, the dopamine surge that you get is addictive by nature, and the connection with it is not going to serve you. However, if, for example, like I do, you're into cold showers, then you can actually make that dopamine work for you. And it will put you in a doing mode for about 3 or 4 hours after your cold shower. You'll feel positive. You'll feel like you want to work hard. And that's therefore making use of a neurochemical and having it serve you. The problem with vices is that the neurochemicals that are produced from those are typically not serving you. So how do we start to manage them? Well, first of all, I want to bring to mind a David Goggins statement. And that is about callousing the mind. For those that are unfamiliar with David Goggins, this is a former Navy SEAL, former Ranger rather, has done some incredible endurance feats, written some incredible books. He has a propensity for swearing in every other word, so his language might put some off. But a lot of his message, I agree with, and one of those messages is to do with callousing the mind. And where that comes from, if you think of a Muay Thai fighter in Thailand, part of their training will be to kick their shins against a palm tree. And they do it every day to a point where their bone begins to callus. So in other words, it calcifies and therefore becomes so strong that you could kick a metal bar, for example, and you're not going to feel any pain. So in the same way with your mind, I want you to kind of think about the same kind of idea, that through doing certain disciplines, you can callous the mind. I don't know whether you agree with me, Robert, but I think our society has very much weakened over the last 20, 30 years. And it's been a real psychological suffering and a psychological weakness. And we've forgotten how to strengthen and become resilient to things because we've softened our lives too much. So callousing the mind is about that. It's about building something into your life that might be a challenge, excuse me, Just like doing cold showers, for example, just like sprinting up and down a hill 10 times every day, whatever it is, you can build this challenge or this hard thing into your life on a daily basis. You commit to it, and it's going to be probably 3-4 weeks of daily commitment before it starts to get hardwired in your mind, and that begins the callousing process. And what you'll find is by doing that discipline for one task, the mind then gets used to you being disciplined, and it will then filter into other areas of your life. So that's step one. Begin to look at things that you could do instead of the vice that will serve you. And we talk about that a lot on our Sales Hustle Challenge, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And as a reminder, we have a Sales Hustle Challenge. It's a 60-day challenge where you give up a vice, you add something new into your world, and then you commit to a daily practice of breath work. And it's about setting a goal, taking something out, bringing something new in. You can visit us at callproof.com/60-day challenge for that. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to put it out there for anybody that was saying, you know what, I have a vice too. I want to get rid of that. I want to add something new so I can replace it with something that gives me energy, that helps my day, helps my income, helps my relationships, all of those things.
I'm glad you did interrupt, to be honest. We needed to make that statement, I think. And I think that's what's so great about that challenge. You're getting way more by doing the challenge than what you might first put in, but only if you remain committed. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? And you'll know this from other areas of your life. If you've chosen to commit to something, let's say you've got a passion in your life, it could be sport related, and you think, right, I want to get from where I am right now to here. I want to win this race, for example. I want to, whatever this challenge that you've set yourself. You've chosen to do that in a very positive mindset, and you've chosen it because you wanted to do it. You wanted to reach that goal, that achievement. So all you're doing in this instance is applying that kind of psychology to something that's just hard, that's something that is a challenge. By doing it, because you've done this before with stuff that you really want to do, that if you commit to it, the outcome at the end will be invaluable. So something I think worth pointing out next is mindfulness. And this is another way that you can start working on managing your vices. Robert and I have spoken about this on a number of different occasions, and we talk about mindfulness in a variety of different ways. But I think sometimes if people haven't tried mindfulness, or maybe they've only heard of it, they might have a negative connection to it. In other words, the negative connection might be, oh, that seems a bit tricky, or where do I have to learn that?
Well,
how do I
a lot
figure
of
that
people
out?
just tried to meditate, and and as a result of a lot of scrolling and a lot of distracted being and doing 3 things at once. I saw one time I walked by my kid's desk and he was watching 2 YouTube videos at once. I'm like, really? You can't focus on one, you got to have 2. And so they give up that mindfulness. They give up that active sitting and not thinking. And how does one that is in that struggle, and I'm talking to, I would say, half the audience of people that is happening to. What's your advice there?
It's a lot easier than you think. So let's say most people have a dishwasher. Most people, therefore, don't do the dishes. They don't wash up. But what I'm suggesting is that you give that a go. And when you do that, a very simple way, this is just an example. There's lots of ways of being mindful, but this would be a really good example. You slow, first of all, everything down. So you prepare the plates, you get the cutlery, and you put them in a position ready to be washed. You then take the first plate. You turn on the tap. The water begins to run. You wait for it to change temperature. Maybe you have your fingers in the water, and that's the first step. You become aware of the sensation of the water on your fingers, and you just pour all of your acute awareness into that sensation. How does it feel? You know, are you noticing any changes on the skin? Are you feeling it anywhere else in your body? You then have the correct temperature of water. The bowl begins to fill up. You put the first plate in there. And then you notice the water hitting the bowl. Then you notice the water against the dirty plate. You grab a sponge or whatever it is that you're using, and you slowly begin to wipe away the grease or the dirt or the food. And what you're doing, therefore, is almost in a kind of a Japanese fashion. You're applying every bit of your senses or sense awareness to the task. And in applying that, so what you're doing is you're smelling. You know, it could be a good smell, could be a bad smell, depending on how long you've been leaving those plates. But you're going to be noticing a smell. You're going to be witnessing and seeing changes in the color of the water. You're going to be feeling the sensation of the water on your hands. So in other words, you are turning the dial on your senses. And that is mindfulness in its purest form. Taking a task, slowing it down, turning the dial up to your senses so that you just become very much aware of the task at hand. And what you'll find is this, that monkey mind chit chat that we all have suddenly gets switched off, because it can't work when your mind and your body are pouring all of their attention into that task. And that same idea you can try with anything. You could do it when walking. You could do it when sweeping. You could do it, anything that you do on a daily basis, turn it into a mindful task, and boom, you've just meditated. You've just slowed down.
So you mean I can clean my house and meditate at the same time?
You can. You can do
now.
do
That would
anything.
be no music. That would just be in the active process of washing the dishes.
Yeah. And what you're doing there, of course, is you're entering the now. So Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, however you want to pronounce his name, he talks about this a lot in the book, The Power of the Mind. Entering the present, entering the now, the power of now. By entering the now, all of a sudden, time slows, or time stops for some people. And you are experiencing life in its purest, in its realness. And that is where all life is at any one time. This is the perfect moment. And the problem that we have now in today's society, in the Western world in particular, is that we don't feel and experience the now. We have a day because it's a working day. And by the end of the day, if we were to look back and think, what have we done? Yeah, we've probably ticked a few boxes, but we won't remember it a great deal. We won't think about that moment at 2:05 in the afternoon when we were experiencing the present, because we weren't experiencing the present. We were being dragged through by life. We weren't feeling it. We weren't witnessing it. That is what mindfulness is all about. And the more you do this, the more your life begins to blossom, because you notice more.
Well, so the question, because this is what happens to a lot of people. They have these moments in time where I'm very stressed. I'm just gonna do some mindfulness, and they do it for 5-10 minutes, and that's it. And then they're like, I tried that last week, it didn't work. Or what kind of commitment does one have to do to really start seeing some actual benefit long term?
Well, first off, don't do it in a reactionary fashion. Don't wait until you're stressed, because you're right. What you've just labeled there is exactly what most people do. They go through life because their routine is exactly the same. And by the way, the mind is used to association. It wants routines. It wants to experience an easy life. It wants to be able to predict. So therefore, if you carry on every day exactly the same, your mind is happy. When you challenge the mind by walking a different direction to work, by going a different journey to work, whatever, then the mind then has to work. And that's how you grow and strengthen the mind. So when it comes to mindfulness, first step really is to start committing to it daily when you're feeling good. Don't wait for when you're feeling rubbish. Start the day off with mindfulness. There's lots of things that I teach that you and I have spoken about different things you can start the day off with. Breathwork, movement, cold showers, lots of different things. But you could very easily start the day off as soon as you wake. Just sit up in bed, close your eyes, and just be mindful. In other words, tap into your senses. Notice the feeling of any clothing that you're wearing against your skin. If you've opened the curtains, tap into your auditory sense. What can you hear? Can you hear the birds singing in the morning chorus? All of that. All you've got to do is just turn the dial on to your senses. Be aware of those things that we've been given.
So help me with this other question that I'm sure someone else is having. They have a vice that they are attached to. It's something they do on a daily, maybe even, and I've done this before when I've had moments in time where I said, I'm not getting on social media. Like right now, I am doing the Sales Hustle Challenge. And one of those is I don't use Twitter. And it became my, hey, I'm standing in line at the bank. I pull up something. I'm waiting for someone to join me on a Zoom. They're not here yet. So I'm in this, and I literally it's just automatic. How do you finally let go? What strategy could one do to say, all right, I can't do this anymore? Yeah.
Well, what you've therefore, if you think about it, your brain now has associated that action with a surge in neurochemicals. It has attributed that mere simple action of, oh, I wonder, to, here comes some dopamine. That's going to make you feel good. So it's time now to hack the brain. It's time to start rewiring and create a new template in the brain. And that's not going to come straight away. In the same way, the way you've got to think about this is in the same way that you created that vice, you now need to create a new positive habit. And then you need to build that positive habit at every waking moment when you think about it. And what you could do is use the technology that you have to set yourself a little alarm. There is an app that I use called Mindfulness Bell. It's a free app, and it just lets off a little chime. It's like a Buddhist sounding bowl or a Buddhist sounding bell. And it just goes, bong, and that's it. And that little gentle chime for me acts as a reminder to get off my butt if I've been sat down in front of the computer for too long. But for somebody else, it could be a little reminder of, let's be mindful for a minute or two. And that's all it is. Use it for whatever you want, but use technology, therefore, to prod you. And all you're going to do, therefore, is in the same way that you connected that experience of doom scrolling to a positive physiological and psychological reaction in the mind of the body, you're now creating exactly the same with your new habit. But what you might need initially is just that little reminder. And that bell will go off, and that's your reminder to go, oh yeah, what am I doing? Oh yeah, okay, let's just be mindful. I'm going to close my eyes. What can I hear? Or maybe look out the window. What can I see? And you could look in the far distance, for example. What can I see over there? What can I see in the foreground? And just, look at the color of the trees. I can see spring is, in the air, all that kind of stuff. Just become fascinated by your world. That is another, and this is where we tap into the childlike psychology. When you think, if I think about my 8-year-old, there are things that still fascinate him that to us are just the banal. They're just the everyday experience. But to him, it's, wow, look at that, Daddy. You can turn that on yourself. You can start to invoke the child within. Another example that you could build into your life is the habit stacking method. And this habit stacking method is brilliant. It proposes that when you're doing something positive that is serving you, For example, having a shower or brushing your teeth. And this is something that you do every day without question. Your brain has associated this as a positive act, and therefore it doesn't question. It doesn't say, oh, we won't have a shower today. Let's not bother brushing our teeth. It doesn't say that anymore. It might have done when you were a child, but it doesn't say that to you now as an adult. So therefore, what you do is when you're doing that task of brushing your teeth, you say to yourself in your mind, after I've brushed my teeth, I'm going to practice mindfulness. And what you're doing, therefore, is you're hacking the brain. You're taking the brain in its state when it's most malleable, when it's accepting the task. And you're just saying, by the way, after we've done that, let's just do this as well. And so the brain just accepts it. That's another.
I really like the idea that you could start kind of building a recipe of what you're already doing. When I do this, I'm going to say this to therefore go to the next stage in your routine. And I think a lot of people, I think for myself, when I look back at when I was at the optimum place, my routine was dialed in, and my routine didn't deviate. And I'm one that really enjoys the routine. I've been experimenting, because of this sales challenge, with the daily breath work, with a cold shower, and that has become just kind of next level for me in terms of my energy level. These devices that you talk about, at the end of the day, you're going to have someone that's going to go, well, I enjoy doomsday scrolling. I enjoy the time that I spend playing a video game. What do you tell someone that is just enjoying that stuff? I mean, there's some point that, playing 8 hours, 10 hours of video games a day is great, I guess. I mean, I guess that's your choice, right? I mean, how do you reconcile that for someone who really enjoys it and would prefer to do it?
Well, I think this is where we need to kick in that rational state of mind. At the end of the day, we all have a life that is ours to choose. If you want to sit at home playing video games all day, every day, do it. Go for it. It's entirely up to you, because this is your life. And we're in a very funny state right now, aren't we, in society, where more and more doctrines are being built into our lives. We're being told what to do. And as a human being, we don't like that, of course. And having somebody like me or you say to somebody, oh, yeah, that vice that you're doing, it's not serving you. Don't do that. Of course, you're going to say, actually, I enjoy it. So it's up to me. Thanks very much. And you're right. It is entirely up to you. You know whether it's serving you or not. Deep down, you know the answer. And actually, some vices, maybe they are serving you. As you say, if you've had a really hard day at work, and if you're really disciplined, and you say when you get home, right, I'm going to have half an hour playing a video game. Nothing wrong with that, is there really? Because what you're doing is you're associating it with downtime. You're associating it with calming the mind. It might not actually be doing that, in the same way that people associate, they used to, having a cigarette with feeling calm. And actually the chemical response on the body was doing something completely different. It was actually not making them feel calm. But because the brain had associated the time that they would have a cigarette, let's say when we used to be able to smoke in the office, you would only smoke in the office, of course, at break time, or at times when you were having a downtime period. So therefore the brain very quickly realized, oh, smoking must be a relaxing thing to do. So that was a really interesting thing that happened, I think, when people were smoking more, was that the brain did one thing, the physiological response did another. So yeah, I think in answer to your question, it is entirely up to you what you do. Your life is your own.
Up to us on our lives, and that's part of why I do this Sales Hustle Club call, to provide people some information, some content that will help their day. I mean, your work day is part of your day. You should enjoy it. I look at it like this, and we got to close here, but I look at it like this, Dave, and that is, yes, we get to choose, but we also get to choose what we could become if we would devote the right energy. And it's not any more energy, it's just energy used in different places that's going to serve me. You know, if I want a kick butt vacation with my family that I need to save for, or maybe I'm going to drum up some extra sales because I want to have a great summer vacation, it's going to mean a little bit of change of behavior and the energy that I'm already having to spend in my workplace. What I can do, I can get my energy right. I can get really focused and dialed in to being disciplined. And in sales, that is who wins. It's those who have the discipline to do the work, to do those follow-up calls, to walk into a stranger's business with a ton of energy and pass out my business card and get their attention. So maybe they buy a product from me, and it's all a decision. We're just walking through life with making decisions, finding out what vices may not serve us. Maybe we let those go and start something new and get into a better habit. But also at the same time, the disciplines that we do take energy. And if you don't have energy behind those decisions, it's going to be easy to slip up into old habits. And anyways, Dave, thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate it. We'll be back next week here at the Sales Hustle Club call. We have moved the call to now streaming at 7:30 a.m. on Central Time, and the recordings will be available by Wednesday of the week. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic rest of the day.